commend the mover of the bill. I think it was a very comprehensive bill in terms of the budget, the address that was presented yesterday. Just want to have a few reactions and a few interventions with regards to what was presented. And I want to start with an area that is very dear to me, the area of the environment. And the two areas that I'm going to speak about first are two areas that are very dear to my heart. And I just want to let the Senator know that me and you will have no argument when it comes to the environment. You know, when I sat there and I listened to you, of course I was the former Minister of the Environment. So anything with regards to the environment, I will always wholeheartedly support. So you'll have absolutely no argument from me where that is concerned. As a matter of fact, when I sat there and I listened to you and I looked at you, I said to myself, I feel proud because I almost feel like you're my student and I taught you well. So you know, the work that I hear you speak about is, I would have been there with some of that work, and I'm so delighted that the work is continuing because it is an area that we need to pay a lot more attention to. You know, when I was there as the minister, I often said to the staff, we need to make the environment more sexy. Yes. So at least because this is an area that people do not normally gravitate to. And so now that you're there, now the administration is there, and we hear so much about the sustainable island state, it rings a bell. I love hearing about the sustainable island state because I always believe that Kitts and Nevis, the smallest independent nation in the Western Hemisphere, we should be the leaders. And I think we are on that path right now of being the leaders, being the beacon of hope. And I think we should represent that nation that people look at, the other nations in the region and throughout the world look at. And so when I hear the term sustainable island state, I'm in full support. I'm in full support of the sustainable island state agenda. When I hear about the climate change framework, I'm in full support. And I also want to stress the fact that this is something that we absolutely need to work together on. Civil society, the government, the private sector, everybody needs to come together and work on anything with regards to climate change, anything with regards to the environment. Because of course we know that climate change, some people may say it's not real, but we are all aware that it is real. The evidence is there all around us. All around us. We live it every day. And it is real, and it is an existential threat that affects all of us, and especially those of us, these small nations in the region. I remember when I was at COP26, they were saying that if the way things are going, there's some little islands that could actually go underwater. Yes. And so whatever we do here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, despite the fact that we do not contribute much, it is important and it is imperative that we as a nation, we do everything that we possibly can to support all of the initiatives that will mitigate against the effects of climate change. I want to stress here again, because I know the member for Nevis 9 would have spoken about it, and the good senator would have spoken about it as well. I want to stress the thing about the green energy and the fact that St. Kitts and Nevis is now collaborating, and collaborating well, for geothermal energy. I think geothermal energy is the key. Is the key for us. Of course, we know we're going to be independent. We're going to be independent in terms of our energy. That geothermal energy provides, of course, in the end, we're going to get more water for agriculture and everything. So a lot of what we're going to be doing, a lot of our development hinges on the fact that we develop that geothermal energy that we have on the island of Nevis, and we develop it for St. Kitts and Nevis. We cannot stress enough the importance of working together. And I want to commend here again, I know I would have done it when we passed that resolution here in the National Assembly, but I do it again. I want to commend all of us for unanimously passing that resolution to support geothermal energy moving forward. And so once again, Madam Senator, you'll have absolutely no argument for me where that is concerned. I also want to commend the efforts in terms of the banning on the plastics, because that is something I'm very passionate about as well. And I know when I was on that side, I spoke a lot about banning plastic bags, single-use plastics. I also spoke about the issue of the microplastics in the ocean, and we actually end up eating the marine life, and then we end up getting cancer. And, you know, people don't understand how important it is that we get rid of the plastic bags, and how important it is that we do it now rather than waiting until later. Because I had the same experience when I went to a regional workshop once, when I hear many of the other islands in the region had already banned plastics, and we were lagging behind. And so I'm happy now that steps are being taken, and in 2024, we will be hearing much more about the banning of the single-use plastic bags. Of course, I would have heard a lot about the recycling as well, and I'm happy that that would have started under me as well. So I'm happy that it is continuing. And it is amazing when these programs are done, when these initiatives are done, that the amount of stuff that you see, the volume, it's amazing. I mean, I've been involved in several cleanups on the beach, cleanups in the villages and so on, and our people need to change, and we need to look at things differently. And that is why I keep saying we need to make sure that people are involved in whatever we do, and we must ensure that people become involved in cleaning up our environment. I mean, it pains my heart when I see people dumping indiscriminately. When the senator spoke about the beds and so on, I mean, when we go around Nevis and we see the fridge and the stove and so in the guts, and it's cheap to take your stuff to the landfill. It's very cheap. Precisely. It's so cheap, and I keep wondering. And the thing about it is that some of these truck drivers actually get paid to take it to the landfill, you know. But they decide, no, I'm going to take the money and I'm going to dump it in the gut. And I mean, then the guts get clogged up. When the rain falls, you have flooding, the guts are overflowing. And so it's a cycle that affects all of us in the end. These stuff that you dump in the guts eventually end up in the ocean. And we need a mindset change. We need to be more proactive when it comes to cleaning up of the environment, and this indiscriminate dumping. It is terrible, and we need to stop it. Please, I'm begging. We need to stop. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, with regards to all that we do in terms of the environment and plastics and the recycling, I think, well, we do quite a bit of promotion, but I still think that we should do some more. There's more needs. There's always room for improvement. And I know our children are very good conduits of information. And maybe we need to do more, collaborate more with education, and we need to get more into the schools. Because generally, once children take a message out, they do an excellent job generally. They will go home and tell their parents. They will tell their peers. And so we have to ensure that whatever we do, we must get the children involved. And I think they're an excellent conduit for taking this message out with respect to the recycling, with respect to the banning of the single-use plastics, with respect to the indiscriminate dumping. We need definitely to have the young people and the children on board where that is concerned. So once again, I am really delighted that the work is continuing. And when I hear about the community cleanse as well, I know how expensive it is to clean up. Because I try to organize a white goods cleanup in my constituency on an annual basis. And it's an expensive undertaking. It's a very expensive undertaking, you know, but there is the need for that. And sometimes we have to do these things to give the members of the public a little nudge to say, well, listen, instead of dumping, let's take it to the landfill, let's take it to the dump. Once again, I want to encourage all, private sector, civil society, all hands must be on deck where this is concerned. I also want to commend the efforts that were made at COP28 I know how important it is to attend. I was fortunate to be at COP26 in Glasgow, and it was a really riveting experience, very, very busy. And I know that the delegation from the Federation would have done a tremendous job this year. And we are happy that nations around the world are looking at St. Kitts and Nevis in the quest of becoming a sustainable island state. Madam Deputy Speaker, as I said, I am going to touch the two areas that I touch first, or the two areas that are dearest to me. Because I worked in environment, I was the Minister of Environment, and I am now going to look at a little bit about agriculture. I was trained in agriculture, that's my background. Can't take the agriculture out of me at all. I am now the Minister of Agriculture on Nevis, and it is something that is very, very dear, near and dear to me as well. Of course, in the budget presentation yesterday, we would have heard about the 25 by 25 initiative. And I believe that much has been said about the 25 by 25 initiative over the past maybe 2 years or so. And a lot of persons, I think, probably know by now what we are trying to achieve when we talk about the 25 by 25 initiative. We are trying to cut our imports by 25% by the year 2025. Of course, it's a CARICOM initiative. And of course, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis is an integral part of CARICOM. And we here in the Federation, we here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we want to ensure that if no other island, no other country in CARICOM achieves that goal, that we can achieve that goal. And here again, it takes both islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, to work together. I want to boldly assert that Nevis is well on its way. We are well on our way. And, member for Nevis 4, you have to bring up your end of the bargain. St. Kitts 4, you have to bring up your end of the bargain, right? Because we are well on our way. I think maybe by now we are actually already there, based on what we have been doing on the island of Nevis. And so I am confident, I am very confident that St. Kitts and Nevis will get there. But here again, we must work together. Now, I know we would have had meetings with the department and the ministry in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have had joint meetings, both in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I am very anxious when the member for St. Kitts 4 is going to speak. Because I remember the last time we met on Nevis, I specifically said that we absolutely have to get there. But I am yet to see a roadmap setting out how we are going to get there, what are the crops, how much crops we're going to plant incrementally to ensure that we get there by 2025. I am confident we will, but the departments must continue to work together so we can have that roadmap to set out strategically how we are going to get there with that 25 by 25. And then, of course, as I said, we on the island of Nevis, we are in full support, and I'm confident that we will get there. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, part of getting there, some of the things that we are doing in terms of agriculture in Nevis, because I said it's a two-island, one paradise approach when it comes to that. And I am happy that when the mover of the bill spoke, he spoke about the hatchery that is being done in St. Kitts, because I think it is common knowledge now that we and Nevis are trying our utmost to jumpstart or establish a broiler industry. We know the potential that is there. We know the potential that is there for our farmers to make a lot of money. And we are trying our utmost to get things moving on the island of Nevis. And I am happy that something was signed in St. Kitts where a hatchery will be developed here on the island of St. Kitts. And I like when things are done that, we hear that things are going to be done, but we want to make sure that it happens. And so I want to make sure, we want to make sure that things move forward where the hatchery is concerned. So when we want the birds from St. Kitts, we're going to be able to get them. And that broiler industry part of the puzzle could be a very, very important part of us in terms of cutting our chicken imports by 25% by the year 2025. Madam Deputy Speaker, in terms of agriculture, shade house production, the experience we have had in Nevis over the past couple of years is that the shade houses are the key. They are the key to ensuring that we do more, we produce more, and I know it's not the same situation in St. Kitts, but I know land is getting scarce on Nevis. And so we have to be more intensive, we have to speak more towards technology where agriculture is concerned. And we have actually realized that over the past year, 50% of what we have produced on Nevis are coming from the shade houses. I know that there are plans here, and I know that the member for St. Kitts 4 will speak about the plans for the greenhouse villages, which I think is a commendable effort. But I have to warn you, member, that at one point in time, St. Kitts had a lot more greenhouses than shade houses than we did. So you have to be mindful of the fact that it will take proper management of those shade houses. It's all well and good to say you're going to set up 15 shade houses in a particular area. You're going to have a shade house village. You're going to set up 15 here and then another 10 there. But it must be carefully thought of. It must be carefully managed. We do not want what happened a few years ago to happen again. Because the situation was a lot of persons in St. Kitts were given shade houses, and because they didn't have to work for them, maybe because they didn't have to buy them, they just squandered the opportunity. And so, as a matter of fact, St. Kitts should have been further on than us when it comes to shade house technology. But I believe the opportunity is there, and I'm confident that whatever is going to be done now, that it can be properly sought out, strategically done, so that those shade houses do not run into disrepair again, and the production from those shade houses can be consistent in order for us to reach that 25 by 25 goal. 2025 is right around the corner. And so we don't have much time. It's right around the corner. You don't have much time to waste. And so I am going to caution the member that establishing of the greenhouses is one thing, but management is another. Madam President, I also wanted to say, and the member for Nevis 9 would have alluded to it as well, that there is a place for our schools when it comes to agriculture. There's a place for our schools. We've been hearing a lot about non-communicable diseases, people not eating what they're supposed to eat, people eating the wrong foods, people eating too much sweet, and that sort of stuff. I think we have the recipe here in St. Kitts and Nevis for our young people, our students, to start eating more healthy foods. And we can start to inculcate that in our students from an early age, from the preschool and the primary school level. And I feel one good way of doing that, at least it has worked well for us on the island of Nevis, is to get the children involved in agriculture. Get them involved in agriculture. You know, because I know there's a school feeding program here on St. Kitts, and I know there was mention about the schools, they were getting the schools involved, but I think that is something that you can look at for the future. Get the children involved, get them to plant what they eat. They'll have more pride in eating what they grow. I mean, when we see the excitement on those students in Nevis and when they get involved in the gardening, You know, I think we have the magic here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I've always said, and I'm going to say it again, that it is a fact that St. Kitts in particular have the best soil in the Caribbean. By far. If you stand up in St. Kitts soil too long, you grow. No, I'm serious. We have the absolute best soil. When I studied in Trinidad, in Centeno, in Ekiaf, I mean, we had a kind of soil they call Cunupia clay. And, oh Lord, you don't want to have to go down and fork that soil. Because its soil was so horrible. But we were able to grow good things there. And if that horrible soil could do such magic, I mean, it's even easier here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I want to say cautiously that I am confident that for the 25 by 25 initiative, St. Kitts and Nevis will meet its target. Madam President, Madam Deputy Speaker, sorry, let me turn a little quickly to health care. And I believe that the member for Nevis 9 saw my notes when I was preparing. Because when I listened attentively to the mover of the bill yesterday, and health care in the budget speech takes up pages 28 to 32. And I want to commend all of the efforts in terms of health care, because I believe health care is, and of course it is, one of the major pillars for that sustainable island state, right? Health care is very important. And we cannot spend too much money on health. The wealth of the nation depends on the health of the nation. I do not know what the situation here is like in St. Kitts, but on the island of Nevis, almost every week, we get requests for persons needing assistance to go overseas for healthcare. Healthcare is very, very expensive. I was literally blown away recently when I heard a lady said, and fortunate she was getting assistance from the US, but she was bold enough to say, well, she had has breast cancer, and her treatment within less than 2 years, surgery and everything, had already totaled over $250,000 US. Very staggering figures. And healthcare is expensive, and I don't know what it is now, but cancers are very prevalent, other diseases are very prevalent, and a lot of the times our people cannot afford healthcare. They may not be able to afford it here. They may not be able to afford it when they go overseas. And so it is important, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we speak the language of a national health insurance. And to be honest, I was disappointed when I read the budget address and the mover spoke eloquently about health, but no mention was made about a national health insurance. I know that some work would have been done on that before, and I'm asking and hopeful that going forwards, that this could be on the table once again, a national health insurance, so when people get sick, they can have somewhere to look at in terms of getting some funds. Because of course we know that the government have limited resources, and you may not be able to help everybody who comes along and wants some assistance to go overseas. And so, I am hopeful that when the budget is presented next year, that we will hear about the national health insurance. As I said, I commend all of the efforts. I think healthcare in the Federation has come quite a long way, and it is going places, but I think an integral part of that movement in terms of healthcare and being such an integral part of the sustainable island state agenda, that we should have that national health insurance, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I am going to touch now on the area of crime. And it is really disheartening, Madam Deputy Speaker, when we turn on the radio and we turn on the television and we hear so much about the crime situation in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I have to say as well that crime is not a political issue. It should not be a political issue. Crime is something that all of us should be concerned about. Of course, we know that we depend very heavily on tourism. And we should always be mindful of the crime rate in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Unfortunately, when the crime rate should be going down, it seems to be going up. And this is something that needs an all-hands-on-deck approach. It's an all-citizens approach. All of us should be involved. Because I always think that the making of criminals, all of us have a part some way in making criminals. I don't think anybody was born a criminal. But sometimes our actions, and they may be subtle actions, but some of our actions help to create the criminals in our society. And so all of us have a part to play. Of course, the government has a part to play. And of course, fingers will always be pointed at the government. And of course, I mean, when good things happen, the government takes the credit. And when bad things happen, the government will get the flack. And so it is incumbent on the sitting government to ensure that we do all that we possibly can to ensure that crime rate comes down. Madam Deputy Speaker, the mover of the bill spoke quite a bit about crime. And I read the budget address myself as well. Quite a lot is outlined here. There's a lot about training, there's a lot about equipment, and so on. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, the thing is, we are investing, and there's nothing wrong with investing in more equipment, investing in more personnel, investing in more training. But whatever we do, Madam Deputy Speaker, we must be strategic and we must ensure that everything is done to ensure that the crime rate comes down. Because it says here, Madam Deputy Speaker, that in June this year, the government would have commissioned the National Security Task Force. That's an excellent move. It says here on page 33, throughout the year, the police force dramatically stepped up its operations, significantly increasing its visibility. And it goes on and on and on. The government is committed to upgrading the technological capabilities of the security forces, and all of that is excellent news. But we want to see results on the ground. We want to see results on the ground, and we want to see the crime rate falling. And so, whatever we are doing, we must have that translated into the figures. Next year, we don't want to hear that St. Kitts and Nevis have had 29 homicides. Let us try to cut that to 9 or to 2 or to 1 or to 0. And so, whatever is being done in terms of the training and the personnel and everything, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have to get some programs on the ground as well to steer our young people, our young men in particular, away from that lifestyle of gangsterism and always want to be shooting. I mean, when we see people become so bold-faced, Madam Deputy Speaker, now that they're doing it all. You know, when crime, many years ago, people used to do crime late at nights. People doing it high now, 7 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the day, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And these people they're not shy. They're bold-faced. Very bold-faced, Madam Deputy Speaker. And so, part of that strategy that is outlined here should include more initiatives on the ground. I didn't see any initiatives spelled out here in terms of getting to the young people. I am hopeful that we can get to the young people this year, for the rest of this year and next year. Because this crime thing, we absolutely must get a handle on it. We need to get a handle on it, and we have to do it together. As I said, it has to be an all-of-society approach. And I don't believe that it is any fault of the government either. It is a societal problem, and the society must be involved. And that's why I said we need more programs and initiatives on the ground involving the people themselves in order for us to see a dent in this crime wave that has been really bad for the country. Really very, very bad for the country. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm hopeful that for next year we can see a downward trend. We have to get tough on crime, whatever we do. And as I said, the detail in terms of the programs were kind of lacking in terms of the budget address, and I'm hopeful that we can see a change for next year. Madam Deputy Speaker, let me move on to the CBI. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the CBI is something that is very, very important to, very critical to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. Very, very critical to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. But to be honest with you, I was a little bit surprised because I said to myself, right, CBI brings in the most money, and CBI gets the least amount of, not support, the least amount of space in the budget address. Very, very, very short segment on CBI. And we must understand that CBI is what has kept us afloat. We see how hard it was during COVID-19 pandemic, when many of the other islands, when many of our neighbors were sending home people and were cutting salaries. Thank God, St. Kitts and Nevis weathered the storm, and weathered the storm very, very well. And when I looked at the budget address, I saw some stuff there in terms of CBI and trying to keep it the way it is and strengthen it. But I think more needs to be said in terms of how we're going to maintain and strengthen the CBI. Because, of course, we know what is happening in the global arena now. We see what's happening with the European Union and trying to kill our CBI program. We see what is happening even here in the region, where there's a lot of competition for CBI. And it's almost like get into a dog-eat-dog situation now, where people are competing to see who can do better in terms of CBI. And of course, as I said, we have players in the region now. The thing is, Madam Deputy Speaker, we must be cognizant of the fact that this Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we were the trendsetters. We were the first to introduce this, and we cannot afford for the other players in the region now to overtake us. We can't afford for that to happen. And so whatever we do, we must have programs in place to ensure that we strengthen our CBI program. Of course, when the movers spoke yesterday, all of these announcements that were made, and Madam Senator, how many were there? 10, right? Yes. All of the announcements. These announcements could not have been made without CBI. Let us be real. CBI is the thing, right? And it is outlined here in the budget as well when it comes to CBI. It says, as stewards of this vital program, we have introduced stringent regulations, including mandatory applicant interviews and so on. So it says there are things being done here, but I think maybe some more flesh could have been put on in terms of what is being done and how we're going to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis remains the leader of the CBI program in the region. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to say here, I want to state for the record, that the CBI program is a program that all of us should support. Any downward trend in this program will be to the detriment of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that means all of us, residents and citizens alike. And I want to state here emphatically that I condemn all who are trying to kill this program in whatever possible way. And all of us, right-thinking citizens of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, should condemn any attempts to discredit the program, any attempts to bring it down, because, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's our bread and butter. This is a bread and butter issue. And this is not a program that we should seek at any time to politicize. And so I am calling for the support of all citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis for the CBI program. And as I said, whatever we do, Madam Deputy Speaker, we should try our utmost to ensure that the program not only survives, but that it grows. Of course, we're talking about sustainability here again. And whatever we do, that word should always be at the back of our minds, the sustainability. And whatever we do with this program as well should be as sustainable as possible. We do not want to see any downward trend in the CBI program and the inflows from CBI, because it will directly affect what we can do here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So let us try as much as possible to protect it, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to say that the budget, when I listened to the budget yesterday, it really was a budget that spoke to people. It was a people-centered budget. And yes, a lot of persons will benefit from the budget. As a matter of fact, when I listened, and I listened to all of the announcement, I was there sitting and saying to myself, oh Lord, Santa has come to Church Street. I didn't see the reindeers, but Santa has come to Church Street. I mean, there was so much. And I have to commend, and here again it comes back to CBI. Because if CBI wasn't there, if our program wasn't strong, these announcements could not have been made. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, I commend wholeheartedly the budget, and I commend the mover. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, I have a few words of caution. I have a few words of caution for the mover and for the administration. And I would say, like what the member for St. Kitts 6 would have said some time back, sometimes we have to simmer down a bit, right? Sometimes we have to simmer down a bit. I know that the administration is trying to go at a very fast pace. Sometimes you got to pace yourself. Sometimes you have to pace yourself, because when I sat there and I listened to all of the announcements yesterday, I was wondering if the bell will ring in January. I was wondering, you know. And Madam Deputy Speaker, as I said, I have to caution us, because a lot of what we are doing, the funds are coming from the CBI. And we have to be cautious about not putting all of our eggs in one basket. Because if anything happened to that basket, we're going to be in deep, deep trouble. The member for Nevis 9 this morning spoke about diversification. And that is something I would like to endorse as well. Because we don't know what's going to happen to CBI in the future. It's going well now, but we don't know what will happen in the future. And sometimes, whatever we do, we must at all times bear that word sustainability in mind. Whatever we do, Madam Deputy Speaker, sustainability must be at the forefront. And it must be observed in every sense of the word, including finances, including spending. And of course, I commend because, yes, a lot of persons are going to be getting additional stuff in their pockets. And of course, a lot of this is going to a lot of the poorer people, the more vulnerable people. But I was wondering, when all of these announcements were made yesterday, I was saying to myself, well, nothing is left to be made next year. And the following year. Some more coming next year.
20 and then 30, we're going to 10 every year.
Oh, Lord of mercy. So I was a little nervous. But now I've been told that next year more coming. And the following year more are coming. But we still have to be cautious. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, when we go to international and regional forums, we are always quick to say that St. Kitts and Nevis is not getting any grants, and we are not entitled to certain concessionary funding and borrowing and so on. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, when we kind of flaunt things and say, well, you know, we have this. Because right around the region, people are looking at St. Kitts and Nevis and they're calling St. Kitts and Nevis the richest country in the region, in CARICOM. And when people look at us, the international community is looking on as well. And when we approach and say we want grants and we want concessionary loans, they're going to say to us, well, no, you can't be getting that when you have so much from CBI. I mean, when I looked at the audit report on page 17, it says, budgetary grants were estimated at $5 million in 2022. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis did not record any budgetary grants during 2022. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis did not record any budgetary grants during 2022. And I know many years ago we were always very fortunate to be getting grants from numerous, yes, sometimes over $200 million in grants from different countries, different organizations. And it is sad now because, as I said, I know I've been to forums where they're telling you, no, you don't qualify, you have graduated, you know? And so when the region, the islands in the region and the international community looks on and they look at our budget, debate, and they say to themselves, well, listen, St. Kitts and Nevis is rich enough, so they don't deserve any grant. I mean, when the senator spoke a while ago, she spoke about, let me see if I can find the right term, she said, concessionary financing, that's what was said. And then I heard about contingency recoverable grants. We have to be very cautious and careful in terms of how we proceed, in terms of what we do. We must be sustainable in what we do. And we should ensure, because even with regards to climate change, there's a lot of money out there. A lot of money out there, a lot of grant money is out there. And I always believe we should be more aggressive in pursuing those grant funds. But will we qualify for the grant funds when we would have had such an extensive budget, when we've had 10 announcements? These are things we have to keep at the back of our minds. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing what we are doing, but I'm just saying that we have to also look at the bigger picture. What will happen when we try to approach for grant funding and concessionary loans? We must be very cognizant of all of that, Madam Deputy Speaker. I also heard the senator spoke about debt forgiveness as well. And so we have to bear in mind, if we want debt forgiveness, they're going to look at certain criteria if they want to forgive you of your debt. And if they realize, well, listen, if they pick up the audit report and realize, well, St. Kitts and Nevis would have made this amount of money from CBI, and they pick up the budget debate and they realize we're spending this amount of money on certain other programs, it could be very difficult for us. So all I'm saying is that we need to be cautious in what we do in terms of our programs if we are to benefit from these grant funding and these concessionary loans. But generally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would say it was a good budget, and I am delighted that many of the programs that were spoken about, many of the announcements that were spoken about, includes Nevis as well. I am very happy for that. I'm happy that I want to echo the words of the member for Nevis 9, who said that we have a much closer working relationship now between the federal government and the Nevis Island administration, and that is how it ought to be, because we are one federation, we are one people. You can't separate people from St. Kitts and Nevis. You can't do that. We are already one, and whatever we do should reflect that we are one. Whatever we do should reflect that unity of purpose. And so I'm happy that, irrespective of the fact that I sit on the opposition benches, that we are seeing some working together of the two governments. And as I said, that is how it should be for the development of the two islands. I often say that the government should be responsible, and the opposition should also be responsible. And you know, some people tend to believe because you're opposition, you should oppose everything that the government do. That's not necessary. That's nonsense. If the government is doing something good, then yes, they're doing something good. If you have to point out something to them, then you point it out. But since we want to hold the government responsible, the opposition should also be responsible. The opposition should not be reckless. And when we have to point anything out, which I pointed out a few things here this afternoon, of course, from the budget, which I think were lacking, but of course, generally the budget was a good budget. And so, we must continue in the federal government and the Nevis Island administration to work together for the betterment of the people of both St. Kitts and Nevis, for the betterment of the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, once again I would say, especially those last few points that I made, we should be cautious in terms of the way we approach things, the way we do things. We must be sustainable in every approach that we make towards becoming that sustainable island state of St. Kitts and Nevis. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, with those few words, I commend once again the mover of the bill, and I want to wish it safe passage through this Honourable House. May it please you, Madam Deputy Speaker.